By the way, I like him as a podcaster more than I did as a quarterback. I think he's a really good podcaster. He was fine at quarterback. He was just a little flashy and too inconsistent, but he's a good podcaster. He says interesting things. He doubles down on the criticism of Caleb Williams being entitled. Now, Boomer Esiason, as a former excellent NFL quarterback, got to a Super Bowl, was an MVP at one point. Boomer Esiason had called him on New York radio. Caleb Williams, he said, you know, the entitlement is breathtaking. And so Cam Newton said yesterday, it's a strong take, but he's not wrong. We're living in the golden era of entitlement. So coming from Cam, it's kind of funny, but I'm not going to take any shots, whatever. Can we just be totally honest about Caleb Williams? If he got Sean Payton as a coach, as a rookie, none of this story would be here. If he got a competent offensive staff, this wouldn't be a story. I do not see entitlement with young quarterbacks. Even Shedeur Sanders, it's more his dad. Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix. I'm blown away by how lucky the NFL is at the focus, the commitment, and the maturity of all these young quarterbacks. I'm blown away by it. I mean, I certainly wasn't this mature at 23 years old. You go look at Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Lamar and Herbert and Tua. They're like grown-ups in their early 20s. It's amazing. Yes, Caleb Williams and his father were deeply concerned about the Bears' historical offensive ineptitude. I don't know if you watched the Bears last year, but they were proven 100% correct on all of their concerns. That's not called entitlement. That's called doing your homework, assessing accurately an assignment, understanding the temperature of the room. Even the Bears, by firing people through the season, acknowledged, we're not doing this kid any favors. The Bears acknowledged by all their firings, it's not the kid, it's the grown-ups around the kid. So I get to regularly meet these young football players, these quarterbacks, a Bo Nix, I'll meet, or a Caleb Williams. I never think of them as immature and entitled, ever. In fact, I would say the last entitled quarterback, and you know who it is because I said he was undraftable, was Johnny Manziel. I said I wouldn't draft Baker Mayfield, but I didn't say he was undraftable to the league. I said Baker needs to grow up. Baker is a top 20 quarterback since he arrived in this league. He's talented, and he's matured. I didn't think Baker was entitled. He was a hard worker. Johnny Manziel's the quarterback that was entitled. He now admits it as he's matured. Johnny Manziel, the money sign, didn't do the homework, not watching film. That's entitled. Caleb Williams and his dad had concerns. And I also think you have to consider culturally what has happened. Caleb Williams was our first collegiate NIL superstar. He was making more than everybody on USC staff, not named Lincoln Riley. Do you think at 22, if you were making $5 million a year, you would always make every day the best decision? Or maybe Caleb Williams and his dad saw what Matt Stafford went through in Detroit and how it would have crushed an otherwise brilliant career. Can you imagine if Stafford went to McVay or a Shanahan or an Andy Reid out of college? We wouldn't now be debating if he's a top 20 quarterback ever. He would be a top 5 quarterback ever. So where you land matters. It is not entitlement to be deeply concerned. Now, I do think, and I know this because I reported a year ago, he and his dad were thinking of figuring out a way not to go there. But in the end, Caleb didn't want to push the nuclear option. Put his head down. I'm going to work my way through it.
Yeah. You guys need to show me where he's entitled. Just tell me. Double doubting and saying, you know, he is deeply entitled. We're living in the golden era of entitlement. Show me the entitlement. I'll wait. A part of me just wishes that I could just make a video where I just say nothing else and say, show me. And I just sit here. Because I want to see it. Where's the entitlement? Where is it? It doesn't make any sense to me. Where is the entitlement? even something as silly and dumb that I talked about when it happened, when he texted the punter, hey, you're not going to be punting that much. And I was like, I wish he didn't say that. And I know it was a little bit more tongue in cheek and it was a private message, but it got out, etc., etc. It's one thing if he said that at the press conference, in the media, if he was like, yeah, now that we, I let so-and-so know that he's not going to be punting a lot. That would be entitlement, right? That would be entitlement. If in day one, he was like, I'm about to light the league on fire. I'm going to bring not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4 rings to Chicago. Like, he didn't say any of that type of stuff. He didn't do any of it. He didn't even remotely bring any of that energy there. When things were going poorly in Chicago in year 1, he was not putting the blame to other people. He wasn't saying, don't ask me, this isn't my fault. Like, he wasn't doing that at all. He kept actually taking on the responsibility. Which is why I said before, he passed with flying colors of having a bad year. Having a bad year, whether you want to say personally, individually, whether you want to say team, he had coaches fired. Like, it was, realistically speaking, the season that he had for like a franchise as a whole, it's pretty much as bad as it can get. Outside of like losing every single game, having you fire coordinators, fire coaching, you're obviously losing a lot of games. You're losing games in like pretty dramatic, absurd fashion. Like, it's pretty much as bad as it gets at that point. It's almost easier to just go to like lose every single game because it's just like you almost understand like what's expected of you at that point. If you only win like one game or something or no games, it's almost like, yeah, that's what this year is all about, essentially. That's not what last year is about. Like, it was a lot messier than that. And he passed with flying colors. You didn't have any random things during out the season where Caleb's camp was leaking, there's a big problem with Eberflus or this or that. Like, you didn't really hear of anything. Shane Waldron, like, you really didn't. And he easily could have been leaking that. He easily could have been hinting at that. And he didn't. He simply did not. So this whole idea that he's been entitled, how? Was he showing up to practices in a helicopter? In week 4, did he show up wearing just decked out in gold chains? Was he like Mr. T? Like, I don't understand. When they got lost, was he all like reserved? When they lost a game, when doing the media, was he all silent? And they were like, oh, why did you lose? And he's like, I don't know. Ask coach. Why did you not run the ball enough? I don't make those decisions. Don't ask me. That's up to our coordinator. What do you guys need to work on? Game plans. Like, he didn't do that. He didn't do that at all. You can make the argument that A.J. Brown was more entitled last season than Caleb Williams. So if you want to have a conversation about entitlement, like you're misdirected right now. You should put yourself somewhere else. If you want to have concerns and criticism on Caleb Williams, by all means, be my guest. Do it. I'm all for it. But like this entitlement, that doesn't make any sense. And I think Colin brought up an awesome point here when he was talking about the maturity. And it's true. We are lucky how mature all these quarterbacks are and how quickly they are. Because look no further than the NBA. Okay? We got 22, 23-year-olds, younger than that sometimes, a little bit older than that. They are not mature. We got guys that are going to be superstars one day. They are not mature. That's just a fact. I'm not even going to name names because I don't feel like triggering a whole bunch of people. But like, they are not mature. There's plenty of players in that league that are not mature at all. Not even close. And we got quarterbacks in the NFL who are technically younger and show more maturity. I mean, like, that's pretty awesome. Caleb has shown more maturity and less entitlement in year 1 as the quarterback for the Chicago Bears than players in the NBA that are in year 5. That are like all-stars, by the way. I'm not talking about just like, because you can always find immature players no matter where you are. But I'm talking about like actual like stars. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. Just use your eyes. Just listen to what people are about. I mean, you got players that are going to be Hall of Famers in the NBA that aren't as mature than Caleb. So like, it's just absurd. And I agree, Colin, when he starts naming like Tua, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen. I mean, like, we are lucky because it is hard to run a franchise when you got a bunch of immature players who make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. John Morant. So we are really lucky that pretty much every single quarterback out there that is going to be like an actual star who's actually worth anything, or even just budding, or even just on the cusp, is really mature. Because the NFL would be kind of a mess. Once upon a time, and I don't even know when this happened, like when this just ended, but it used to just be like, you used to be able to say, oh, you know what? You have amazing, special, elite quarterbacks, and then the fall off is just so dramatic that it's either you have a superstar or you have nothing. And seemingly overnight, that has changed. Now you have elite special quarterbacks, and then you have a section of quarterbacks that are like really, really great. They're obviously not that next level elite, but like they have moments when they can play like that. And their lows aren't like a complete disaster. They're like, you're just like, if they could just be like slightly more consistent, they could join that elite party. And then you even just have the good quarterbacks where you're like, yeah, they're obviously not elite. They're obviously not Hall of Famers. But you do have a strong feeling of like, man, if we build a good enough team around them, and, if we have a good enough coach and we can get hot, like, we can win. We could even win a Super Bowl. If we have a great run game and we don't need to rely on him to, like, come from behind and make these big-time throws in big-time moments, like, we could win, especially if we have a great defense and blah, 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 blah. And then even the bad quarterbacks, who you don't necessarily want to be your quarterback, you're still kind of like, man, this quarterback is good enough where if we could just get into the playoffs, we could maybe have like 2 or 3 great games in a row. Like, we could kind of catch fire here. Again, especially if our defense kind of holds their own and can hold the opposing team to like 14, 17 points. Like, we could at least get to the AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game. And once upon a time, it didn't feel like that at all. And it just like seemingly changed. And a lot of it is maturity. So saying that we're in the golden era of entitlement. Yeah, we're in the golden era of entitlement, like on social media, in life, in the world. But like, when we're talking about like quarterbacks right now, or even the NFL as a whole, I'm not so sure I see that. I see that in basketball. I see that in the NBA. And quite frankly, it's made it like, a lot of it has made it unwatchable. Because I do see the personalities shine through when I'm watching games. If I felt that Caleb Williams was entitled, kind of a jerk, kind of, egotistical, just keep naming the negatives, it would be hard for me to sit back and root for him. It just would be. I'm at the point in my life where I like to root for people who I believe are like kind of good people, who kind of want it, who put in the hard work, who are deserving, however we want to define that in any given moment. And when I'm watching the NFL, I find myself sometimes hemming and hawing because I'm like, I do want to see Tua win. And I'm like, I want to see Josh Allen win. I do want to see Lamar win. I do want to see Mahomes, Jalen, Caleb. When I'm watching this original battle between Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, I'm like, Jaden Daniels is on fire right now, taking over. And I'm happy for him. That's awesome for him. But I'm also like, man, that has got to be hard for Caleb to see that. Because like that was supposed to be Caleb and it's not right now. And I feel for him. And if I thought he was a jerk and if I thought he was entitled, I'd be like, that's what you get, bro. Karma, what goes around comes around. Like, that's not the case. It's not the case at all. So this whole idea that he's entitled, I don't even know where it comes from, quite frankly. I really, really don't. Look at Baker Mayfield. I'm about to trigger Baker fans. And I am not ripping Baker. I defend Baker. I actually am impressed how Baker's career changed over the years. Baker came off as entitled. Baker came off as immature, which is why for a long time I was very, very, very cold on Baker and was kind of like, you threw an interception? That's a bummer. Guess you're not good. You know, like I'm like looking for that. And I don't do that now because he's matured. He's changed. Not actively rooting against him. And Caleb didn't have any of those personality traits. Like none of them. None of those kind of like questions. None. Zero. So I just can't wrap my head around this take. I really can't. It just does not make logical sense to me. And that's why I keep saying, show me the evidence. If you're going to make a claim that he's entitled, and if you're going to say, oh, because he didn't want to go to Chicago, that means you're entitled? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. None. And he still ended up doing it. I could understand if he refused to play and he kind of played that card. I could understand then to take a little bit more. But like, I don't know, man. Just absurd. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Caleb Williams, I guess, being just a peak example of entitlement and just being the golden boy in the golden era of entitlement? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're all on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.